Hi, Poetic X. How are you?
Hello, Isabella. Thank you for having me here in the studio.
Thank you for joining. First off, your title is Caddo Parish Poet Laureate as
Yes.
well. So, first off, can you talk to me a little bit about that and what is that?
Well, Poet Laureate is a position I was selected for through the Caddo Parish Commission. It's an you can say that it's an elite, position as far as literary performance, as far as poetry is concerned. I facilitate different events, or present different events. I work with the youth. I make sure that poetry is accessible to the community, and a variety of responsibilities that comes in with Caddo Parish Poet Laureate. But those are just a few.
For people who don't know much about you, Poet X, can you tell me, I guess, where you got your education from, but what ultimately inspires you to continue with poetry?
Well, with poetry, I had been inspired by early on, and I would write poems for my mother. Then I would have mentors, and then I would have teachers that always played a significant role in me being consistent with being attentive towards poetry or wanting to write poetry. And watching the community, watching life events and experiences in life kept me engaged gratefully to continue to write and branch out as a person, as a human.
And I guess for younger poets, what was that moment to you that kind of was like, I can do this as a poet, I want to do this, and what was that?
It was an assignment that was given to me by a teacher named Miss Inocencio, and the title of the poem was called Everyday Living. And once I wrote the poem and saw the classroom's reaction, it was at that time that I knew that the future for me may surely, most certainly, have poetry connected to it. It would be a way for me to get around it. But that was an early experience from Miss Inocencio. One of the murals that I'm most proud of is a mural placed at Chimp Haven. It's called the Chimp Life. I had the opportunity to go there and tour the facility, read on some of the material pertaining to the organization, and then come up with a very exciting piece. Another piece is called Look Up Child. I collaborated with artist Alex Richardson in producing that piece. It was first placed up mural at a library, but we have it at Midway Elementary right now. So that's those two are two that I'm very excited about.
And what was it about those two poems that stood out to you, that kind of touched your heart, but hopefully touched a lot of people's hearts?
Well, with the chimps and seeing the history of the chimps in Chimp Haven, to be able to write a piece that serve their purpose or the bottom line of what the organization is about, that when persons come and they see the chimps, that the poem perfectly complements what's taking place there at the organization. With Look Up Child with Alex Richardson, it's the art and the education component for the youth to experience that poem and be inspired to write poetry and to read and to perform poetry too if they take it that far.
How does that feel to you to have murals around Caddo Parish?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm excited. Anytime I'm given an opportunity to take an art form, to whom much is given, much is required. So I've been blessed, to be able to write and to give back. So anytime I'm able to service the community or watch the youth inspired by a gift that has been set within me for years, then I'm very inspired to serve, but to present for them, to do more, to organize, to structure, to advocate, for poetry.
For young poets, what can you say to them, and what is a note of inspiration to them that you can give to younger poets who, want to write but haven't, or maybe they're afraid to actually perform their poem?
Observe their surroundings. Never count themselves out, because nothing is what it seems. Study. Poetry is the most rewarding, exciting education on planet Earth. And right now, poetry has to be, I would say, as attractive as the latest technology. So You know, they have iPhones, they have TikTok, social media platforms that, as artists or poets primarily, that they will have to poetry has to compete with. But having an artist being dedicated and knowing that a lot is going on in the world right now, but nothing should cause them to sway away from being passionate about who they are, understanding themselves, and that's the assignment of poetry: self-awareness. You know, first.
And what keeps you going in terms of writing poetry? What, keeps you wanting to write poetry?
You know, poetry is the brain of a cell, the mitochondria of life. So it's so much more. You know, when persons pass on, you know, they have different illnesses and ailments. I know that as helpers, we would like to do a lot more. But if persons study in depth and detail, then surely through who, what, when, where, and why, I mean, that's about the youth. Going into those questions and being enlightened themselves, they would see that they have far greater skill sets to be utilized and serve a greater purpose. And don't be fearful if your background is not as the doctor, as not as the lawyer. Don't deviate from the information that's still being delivered to you. You can shape and form yourself to a doctor and to a lawyer later on. Just keep the parts and pieces of poetry that you've been given right now. So I've seen the students' passion working at Caddo Magnet with Poetry Out Loud. The camaraderie that the students display, the excitement when it's time to compete, that once the event is over, it's one time. I want them to be able to engage in poetry more. I would like to help them produce poetry plays, present poetry festivals, perhaps on campus at school. You know, whatever way that that poetry can be implemented in the school system so that students can have it on a continual basis. They need it.
You have a documentary, so can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I have Versified Rated Poetry documentary. It was recorded by Clint McCummon, Fatfield Studios, but it highlights the power of poetry. I mentioned so many different movements in the documentary, from Gilgamesh to where we are now with youth poet laureates and Amanda Gorman. It covers the process by which poet laureates now are being selected in different cities and different states. The Grammys right now are recognizing poets, youth poets, older poets, and we don't have to be youth poets, but that we have crossed a milestone to see the Grammys and the Recording Academy now recognizing poets as well. So that is highlighted in the documentary. And I would like for organizations to come out. You know, you're invited to come out to the Robinson Film Center. It may be Thursday, April the 24th, 2 days before the event on the 26th. But surely invited to come out, bring groups to learn more about the movement and the power of poetry, and teachers as well. Yes.
And so I guess with, your documentary and then Speak Poetry Fest, will there be guest speakers there? Who's going to be there? What can people expect?
Well, they can expect performances, book signings, book readings, workshops, musicians, food. We have art, and we're also presenting awards that we've been presenting for 6 years now, and that we ask persons to submit for persons that they think are best suited for these awards. But there's the Ephraim Tyler Award that's given out for a Poet of the Year. There's Community Trailblazer Award. There's the Youth Poetry Ambassador Award, and there's also a Poets Connected Award for poets out of state or outside of Shreveport, Louisiana. So we're proud of those awards that we have been giving out to highlight the contributions of movers and shakers in poetry.
I love that. Thank you so much, Poetic X. And thank you for joining us. You can find more information at ktalnews.com. And that's all for us. Thank you.